guys, so I promised you a video, so here it is. I set up this still life, just a banana, apple, and my aloe plant. I know we talked about lighting, but I realized as soon as I got home that I don't have any lamps in my house. So what I did just to get some of these like cast shadows that are happening is I bought some foam core and I cut it in half. And I just kind of set this up so that I could have a white background to draw from. I'm going to use the Reeves BFK that you guys are using in class, and then this will be for the open palette project. So here we go. Okay, so I'm setting our timer for 30 minutes. So what we're looking for in this, with this project is layering and exploration of the medium, because this will really help you guys on your project that we're working on now since it is an open palette. So right now I'm just doing like a quick gestural outline just so that I can place some of these objects. So I think proportion and getting the right measurements for everything is really important. I know a lot of you have been confused on how to go about this project, so I'm hoping that me doing this, it'll help you guys really understand what the expectation is. So there is my basic layout. I'm just going to go through, and I'm not going to worry about any of this up here. I'm going to focus more down here. So I'm just going to go through and kind of put in where all my darks are going to be so that I can work over top of them. Let's move on. Let's add some of this red. So I'm going to work in the red to the apple over here. You might start from lightest if you want. If that was like a better way for your brain to think of this, you can start with the yellow, because there's yellow in the apple and in the banana as well as in the pot. So if we're going to do that, I'll just start with the yellow. I don't think that it's necessary to do yellow all over spots. Like some spots just have mostly brown. And I'm modulating these lines. I don't know if you guys can tell, but this part right here, I've concentrated really hard. I've gone over it more times with the with the wax pastel, whereas like in here, I'm just going to go over it really lightly because it doesn't need as much yellow. Okay. Okay, that's probably all I'm going to do to the banana for right now. With the apple, I'm just going to come in here and add some areas with the lighter yellow values and possibly hit where there's going to be a highlight. Again, I think another issue I've seen in sketchbooks is maybe the fear of mixing the colors. A lot of you do this, like you'll have one object that is this color and then you'll have another object that's only this color, instead of mixing them together to create a three-dimensional effect. So hopefully this will help you guys realize the potential that you have with this medium. Some back here, and just a little bit light. Just kind of here. And kind of run over the whole thing with a really, really light touch. So this is another thing that I'm going to show you guys. I think it's perfectly acceptable to set up a still life object like this, but then only focus on a small section, because that's like a very limited time. 30 minutes to an hour is what you want to do for these sketchbook projects. So I'm going to move on to the red now. Obviously the apple has some darker areas, some mid-tone reds, and then the lighter yellow section. So I'm really going to hit those really, really or bright red areas harder with the wax pastel than I will on areas that are like the mid-tone red. So towards the bottom of the apple here, it's not as bright and vibrant as the side of the apple. And if none of that makes sense, in layman's terms, it's just wherever the apple is the darkest is where I'm going really hard with the red. And hit down here really hard where that shadow is going to be from the from where the apple is sitting. It gets really dark down there, and then there's a highlight right above it. So again, I'm going to use a different heaviness to make this lighter shade of red. Stop there. I'm going to move on to green because this apple has a lot of green spots happening in it, and I'll come back and rectify this here in a little bit. The banana also has a little bit of green happening in it as well up at the top that I want to play with. And then we'll come back in here with some harder browns. So the light green up at the top, a lot of you, when you use this green, you like push in really, really hard. Those of you who do that know who you are. I really just want like a really light green to go over the yellow. So I'm not going to push very hard at all. I probably am not even going to add very much in. Some of these spots where there's going to be like dark brown, black areas. I'm going to go ahead and put additional green into it. Just playing around with color mixing and sort of like what colors I can make here. So we're going to see what happens with that. I'm not really sure. Again, it's really dark up at the top of the banana where the bottom's at, and I'm going to make that kind of green too. Okay, so at this point we have 15 minutes still. So we've gotten a lot done in the 15 minutes that we have been working. There's still a lot more to be done. Let's jump back over to this apple and do a light layer of green in the center, because the center of the apple is green still, and then there's a nice little spot on the outside that has a little bit of green as well. I'm liking the way that this green is laying over the red, creating a darker red. So I think in some of these really, really dark areas, I'm going to go back over it with green to really like darken up those red areas. Again, I'm not hitting it really hard. I'm doing a really loose line. I really don't want a whole lot of color in there. I just want it a little bit to give me a darker red in some of these areas. So this banana has a lot of scratches on it and age spots. So I'm just gonna kind of stick some of those in there and be a little bit more loose and graphic. I'm gonna stipple it a little bit, see what kind of marks I can make. Again, this doesn't need to be like a perfect drawing. It can very much just be your exploration of the material and what it can do. But I may just hit some of these areas with the black just to kind of pop them out a little bit more. I've made kind of like a little scribble here because this part of the banana gets a little bit darker because there's a flat plane on that side and then it goes to a flat plane on this side. So we're trying to show depth and change in plane. So this is where we're at right now. It's a little bit messed up. So I noticed that it's making more of a curved shape on the back, and I made it more of a slope in, and it needs to curve out. So I'm going to come back in and try to make that correction. Again, I put down a black line, so the problem is going to be that now it's turned green because I put yellow over black. That's okay. This is a sketchbook for a reason. I just need to extend this. I'm gonna work on some of these yellow spots too, because I feel like I can really dig in with this marker to make it a more vibrant yellow. So, sort of doing that to make it more of a vibrant yellow instead of this sort of like washed out yellow. So I'm gonna stick some more brown on top of that yellow, just because I dimmed down all the browns, but I'm going to push a little bit harder to get some more opacity in there instead of it being so transparent. If you're feeling like you're running out of things to do, like if you're at a spot where you're like, I just want to be done, look for tiny little details. So I've added some little tiny flecks of brown up into this stem, because if we look close enough, there are tiny little flecks of brown that are occurring in that stem. I'm going to go back and add in some yellow over here because I feel like I lost a lot of depth over here. Okay, so I'm feeling really confident about my banana. I don't think that I need to keep working on it. I think the green really helped out in some of these areas of darkness. And I'm going to go ahead and move on to my apple. There's also some oranges in this apple. So I'm just going to go in and kind of add some orange in there also, because why not? My hope is that it'll lay flat some of that red and really make it this nice and warm color. So I'm just going to go over my whole apple and try to flatten those colors that I added under it. So I flattened a lot of those colors. Now I'm going to go back in with my dark red and just brighten up some of those spots. So you're noticing that there's a lot of layering happening here. A lot of you, like I said earlier, the problem is that you're just not exploring the layering. You're leaving it with one flat color instead of utilizing all of these colors to make an image. Here we are again. I'm still working on this section. I'm going to work into this spot over here, kind of brighten up, and I want to make it look kind of streaky. Like I want it to look like the apple, because I feel like I'm more of a realist drawer. I want the object to look just like what I'm seeing. So there's a hard shadow down here, but there's also this like really dark, rich red core shadow running through the center that I have yet to kind of capture. So I'm gonna work on that. And I feel like it's okay, like I said, if you don't do the whole thing, but I just want to see a good portion done. Our timer says we still have 2 minutes left. So we have plenty of time to kind of fix this apple before we're out of time. But again, if you really get into this project, you can work on this for as long as you want. It's a minimum of 30 minutes to an hour. Like I've messed up here. It's totally fine, you guys. I move on. I'm trying to think what else. So I see that I have complementary colors here, like I'm working with yellows, reds. So I'm going to use a blue and come in here to drop some really hard shadows. And I'm only going to do it in the spots where it's like really hitting with the most light and the darkest. So I'm hitting this really hard, and then I'm just going to pull it out really lightly, so I'm barely putting any color down. Okay, so that's our 30-minute timer. I'm just going to finish up this shadow, and I'm going to call it quits. Again, lighting is super important. If you have a lamp, a flashlight, I couldn't find anything tonight, but if you have anything like that, please use it so that you don't get these hard shadows just dropping straight down. But this is what we've ended with tonight, and it was a short 30 minutes, and we learned a lot about how to mix colors, and I hope that this helps you guys realize what the expectation is for the sketchbook project. So happy drawing!